Welcome to the Symantec Data Loss Prevention 12.5 Administration course. Lesson 1 is the Introduction to Symantec Data Loss Prevention. After completing this topic, you will be able to define DLP in the IT industry and describe the Symantec approach to data loss prevention. You'll be able to describe the Symantec data loss prevention products or modules and also explain the architecture for the Symantec data loss prevention system. This topic defines data loss prevention in the industry and Symantec's approach to data loss prevention. Organizations have a duty of care to protect and secure the confidential data they store about their customers and employees, and organizations have a requirement to protect their intellectual property, so things such as source code and product designs, for example. DLP solutions provide content-aware inspection of data transmissions across a vast array of an organization's IT infrastructure. The aim being to both reduce the risk of and prevent the loss of confidential or sensitive information. A DLP solution should provide the answers to 3 key questions which you can see on the slide. The first is to let the customer know where their confidential data is. So we can go ahead and scan things such as file shares, databases and SharePoint repositories, for example, to show where confidential data has been exposed. The second question is to show the customer how the data is being used. So a DLP solution, being content aware, can go ahead and inspect network communications such as email and web, as well as the transmission of data on an endpoint. So local network traffic on the endpoint should be scanned, as well as things like USB storage and CD and DVD burning. And the third question a DLP solution should answer is, how do you prevent data loss? So a DLP solution should give the customer the ability to go ahead and prevent or block data from leaving the organization, such as email, web and endpoint activity, being monitored in real time and blocked where required. Organizations estimate the potential magnitude of data loss by categorizing and prioritizing data. We commonly see 3 categories of data at risk customers are interested in looking for. The first is customer data, which can include things such as national ID numbers, so national insurance numbers, social security numbers, tax file numbers, for example, credit and bank card numbers, account balances and health information. Company confidential includes things such as quarterly results, merger and acquisition strategies, maybe a CEO internal email, which must not be leaked, and employee data. And finally, intellectual property, which can include things such as source code, product designs, manufacturing plans, and pricing information. We will now go ahead and look at Symantec's approach to data loss to show how we answer the 3 questions we just discussed. So Symantec's approach to data loss prevention is a modular approach. So we have different modules to address different needs. To find where your confidential data is, we have a set of modules designed to discover data. So we can discover data on file shares, filers, endpoint machines, SharePoint servers, and email systems, for example. So we can go ahead and look for confidential data in various repositories and report back all exposed confidential information. To answer the question of finding out how the data is being used, we provide a set of modules designed to monitor. So we can monitor network traffic. So we can monitor and look for confidential data in transmissions via email, web, FTP, for example. And we can also monitor local endpoint activity, including local network traffic, USB storage devices, CD DVDs, and printing, for example. And to answer the question of preventing data loss, we provide a set of modules designed to protect your confidential data. And these modules give us the ability to do things such as block email, block web transactions, and block the movement of data from an endpoint machine. Very important for modular applications is the ability to be able to centrally manage the entire system. So Symantec provide a central management platform giving you the ability to manage all these different product features and modules that customers can use. We will now go ahead and take a look at the Symantec data loss prevention products and give you a brief overview into what they do and how they work. Let's take a look now at the architecture for Symantec data loss prevention. On the left hand side we have our central administration platform, which is called the Enforce server. Symantec DLP also requires a database to securely store information, and that database must be set up on Oracle. That Oracle instance can be set up on the Enforce server itself, or can be set up on a separate Oracle server that the customer may choose to configure, or they may choose to use their existing Oracle server if they have one. On the center of the slide we have our detection servers, and these are the machines which do the work with regards to finding confidential data moving around or stored across your IT infrastructure. The detection servers in blue are relating to storage or data at rest. So we provide a detection server called Network Discover, and this feature goes ahead and connects to and scans the various repositories which store data within your organization. We also have a feature called Network Protect. So when Network Discover runs a scan of a file server, for example, if it finds a confidential file containing credit card numbers in a share, Network Protect can go ahead and relocate or copy that file to a secure location you choose. Next we have some complementary products relating to storage or data at rest. The first is called Data Insight. Data Insight really does enrich the results of your Network Discover scan by providing information about who the owner of the confidential data is and who the top domain users of that file are. The second complementary product for data at rest is the Symantec Data Classification for Enterprise Vault solution, and this gives us the ability to scan emails for confidential data as they're being sent to Enterprise Vault. This gives us the ability, for example, to apply retention policies or tags to the messages in Enterprise Vault. Next we have our endpoint features, or data in use features. So the first detection server here deals with endpoint prevent and endpoint discover. Now these two features require an agent to be installed onto each endpoint which is to be protected with Symantec data loss prevention. Endpoint prevent gives us real-time monitoring of user activity on the endpoint machines, and endpoint discover gives us the ability to scan the local drives on the endpoint for files which contain sensitive information. Endpoint discover can also go ahead and quarantine files which contain sensitive information from the endpoint. Next we have mobile prevent. Mobile prevent gives us the ability to monitor and optionally block traffic leaving from mobile devices such as iPhones and iPads. Mobile prevent requires a direct integration with a supported web proxy, and for mobile prevent to work, the mobile device needs to have a VPN connection established to your corporate network. Mobile email monitor, the final data in use detection server, gives us the ability to go ahead and scan active sync traffic going to a mobile device. So active sync traffic from Exchange going to a mobile device can be scanned, and we can report back any emails which contain sensitive information which went to the mobile device. If that mobile device is then lost, we know what confidential data was on the device. Mobile Email Monitor requires again a direct integration to your web proxy. Next we have the network detection servers, or the data in motion detection servers. We have Network Prevent for email, which requires an inline integration with your message transfer agent. This then gives us the ability to scan emails as they leave the organization, and as the name suggests, we can also go ahead and choose to block or modify an email if required. We then have Network Prevent for web, which integrates inline with a supported web proxy, and this gives us the ability to scan web requests or responses for confidential data, and as the name suggests, we can also go ahead and block that web transaction if required. And finally, for data in motion, we have Network Monitor. This gives us the ability to passively monitor network traffic moving around or leaving our organization. Here we integrate to your network either via a SPAN, a switched port analyzer on a managed switch, or a test access port. Once that integration is performed, we then go ahead and passively monitor by capturing the traffic as it leaves, and then we scan that copy traffic for any policy violations. This multi-tier architecture provides great scalability for the customer's implementation. This multi-tier distributed architecture enables Symantec to scale the implementation to as many detection servers as needed in order to meet the needs of the largest global enterprises in the world, as well as small to medium enterprises. The multi-tier distributed design enables organizations to deploy detection servers and system components across the global enterprise while managing them from a single console. The Enforce platform is the central management console for DLP. This gives us a variety of administration tools. For example, we can go ahead and build our policies for DLP. We can implement workflow. We can work with reporting and remediation features, analytics. We have a very granular role-based access control system. All servers can be administered centrally from the Enforce platform. We have certificate authentication available. And finally, we can go ahead and build the endpoint agent installation packages from the Enforce server, which can then be deployed with the customer's asset management tool or manually to each endpoint agent. For storage or data at rest, we now know we have a detection server called Network Discover. This feature can go ahead and scan file servers, databases, collaboration platforms such as SharePoint, websites or intranets, and your desktops and laptops. As previously mentioned, Symantec Data Insight complements Symantec Data Loss Prevention by enriching the results of a Network Discover scan. So Data Insight can provide information about who the information owner is, file usage, and the file permissions set on the files and directories themselves. Data Insight works by collecting information from your CIFS shares, your NetApp filers, and your EMC filers. That information can then be fed through to the Symantec Data Loss Prevention incidents relating to data at rest. Finally, Data Insight has a self-service portal, which will be discussed later on in this course. To implement storage solutions for data loss prevention, the customer first needs to enable and configure their policies for DLP. Next, the customer will configure a scan target. This tells Network Discover which network shares to scan, for example. We can apply filters to the scan as well. We'll then run the Network Discover either on demand or on a schedule to go ahead and find the confidential data on the repositories to scan. Optionally, the customer can choose to use Network Protect to make a copy of or quarantine data that violates our policies. All remediation and reporting tasks are performed on the Enforce platform. For our endpoint features or data in use, we now know we have Endpoint Prevent and Endpoint Discover. So Endpoint Discover enables us to go ahead and scan for confidential data exposed on the local drives on the endpoint machine. Endpoint Prevent gives us monitoring and the ability to block on various mediums on the endpoint, such as USB storage, CD/DVD, local network traffic, print fax, copy-paste, network shares, application file access, and the remote desktop protocol. To implement data loss prevention for the endpoints, the customer will first need to deploy the endpoint agent to the desktops and laptops, as well as servers which require protection. We will also need to enable and configure policies for the endpoints. We'll then configure the agent configuration to tell the agent what to monitor, so USB, CD/DVD, network shares, for example. When incidents are triggered, the system will notify the employee and the manager, if the organization chooses to, and all remediation and reporting on risk reduction are performed on the Enforce server. To implement the mobile features, such as Mobile Prevent and Mobile Email Monitor, we do require the inline integration with your web proxy. Mobile Prevent monitors HTTP as well as HTTPS and FTP traffic, and Mobile Email Monitor just monitors active sync traffic going to the mobile device. For our data in motion or network features, Network Monitor monitors any TCP-based traffic such as SMTP, HTTP, IM and FTP. Network Prevent for email and web. These monitor the SMTP protocol, HTTP, HTTPS and FTP. To implement data loss prevention for your network, the customer will need to enable and configure their DLP policies. Once enabled, we will then monitor any network traffic. So if an employee sends out confidential data via a protocol we are monitoring, we can go ahead and detect the incident with Network Monitor. If the customer is using Network Prevent, we can detect the incident and we can optionally choose to block, remove content or tag the message for encryption. The system can notify the employee and their manager if required, and again, all remediation and reporting is performed on the Enforce platform. Here we see an example of a Network Monitor deployment. So the Enforce server resides within our corporate LAN. We will normally deploy the Network Monitor server close to the outbound edge of our network, typically in the DMZ, and as we know, we integrate to the network via a SPAN port or test access port or network tap. That SPAN or tap sends a copy of the network traffic which is leaving to Network Monitor. The original traffic continues to its destination, but Network Monitor inspects the copy of the traffic for any policy violations and reports back incidents where required. Network Monitor cannot block any traffic. We will now go ahead and take a deeper look at the architecture for Symantec DLP. Symantec Data Loss Prevention, as we know, offers a multi-tier architecture, giving our customers great flexibility and scalability in how they choose to deploy the solution to their environment. The 3 tiers of installation are as follows. A single tier installation requires the Enforce server, the Oracle database, and the Detection server to be installed onto a single host. A two-tier installation involves the Enforce server and Oracle server residing on a single host, and then the Detection servers installed throughout the organization where required. And finally, a three-tier installation requires a separate host for Oracle, a separate host for the Enforce server, and separate hosts to provide the detection servers and detection capabilities. Here we can see an example of the deployment requirements for a large or very large enterprise. For the Enforce server, the operating system supported are listed on screen. So Microsoft Windows Server 2012, Standard Enterprise or Data Center Editions, 64-bit, Windows Server 2008 R2 or R2 SP1 Standard and Enterprise Edition. We can also support Red Hat Enterprise Linux deployments on versions 5.7 to 5.10, 6.4, 6.5 on 64-bit. Processor requirements, minimum of 2 times 3 GHz dual-core CPUs. Memory, around 8 to 16 GB of RAM. Disk space, we need 1 TB of RAID 5 available for the Oracle database. And for networking, 1 copper, 1 GB, 100 megabit Ethernet. For detection server requirements, the operating systems, processors and memory are the same. The disk space is much smaller. Nothing is permanently stored on a detection server. And just be aware of the network interface, one copper, 1 gigabit, 100 megabit Ethernet to communicate with the Enforce server. If the detection server is a network monitor server, an additional network interface will be required, and we do support high performance network interface cards. Virtualization support is available for Symantec DLP. The Enforce and Detection servers, with the exception of Network Monitor, support VMware ESX4 and above on 64-bit hardware. Microsoft Hyper-V is also supported on Windows 2008 R2. The customer is required to set up the VMware container. However, product setup is the same as it would be for installations on physical hosts. So to summarize, everything can be virtualized with the exception of the Oracle database and the Network Monitor detection server. For virtualization support relating to virtual desktops, we support Citrix, XenApp and XenDesktop. So our Endpoint Prevent agent supports XenApp and XenDesktop. We also support VMware View, Microsoft Hyper-V and Remote Desktop RDP. For coverage, XenApp supports all Endpoint Prevent features with the exception of CD and DVD, AIM, MSN, Yahoo Messenger and application file access. XenDesktop does not support CD or DVD or application file access detection. Third-party software requirements. Required tools are the operating systems we covered earlier for the Enforce server and detection servers, and the database for DLP is Oracle 11G version 11.203 64-bit with the most recent critical patch update. Optional tools can be used. The customer may choose to use a packet analyzer tool such as Wireshark. This will give the customer visibility into the IP ports which are being used to submit information. That gives great assistance in deciding how to configure the Network Monitor detection server with which protocols should be captured. If you're going to be scanning Unix shares with Network Discover, services for Unix 3.5 should be installed onto the Network Discover server. If you're using high-performance network interface cards such as NDACE for network monitor, we suggest network measurement tools, so NDACE 3.42 or 4.24 are suggested. And for packet capture, when running network monitor on a Windows operating system, WinPCAP 4.11 to 4.13 are the supported packet capture libraries. For inter-server communications between DLP components, by default port 8100 is used for communications between detection servers and the enforce server. This can be changed during installation, and this port supports multiple connections. The connection establishment direction is from the enforce server to the detection servers themselves. Symantec DLP has a multi-layered security implementation, so we combine the following capabilities. We encrypt and hash sensitive data in various locations. We have key rotation and storage, key protection, and secure communications between the various DLP components. With regards to the encryption and hashing of sensitive data, we use AES encryption to encrypt incident data, the access credentials for our Discover scans, system passwords such as the administrator account and Oracle accounts, and the secure agent file store, which is a component of the endpoint agent, which you'll see later on in this course. With regards to the hashing of data, the detection method exact data matching hashes sensitive information, and user passwords are also hashed. A common symmetric key is used for all non-communications related encryption and hashing. We will now take a look at the security architecture for Symantec data loss prevention. So the Enforce platform maintains our secure key store in the Oracle databases. Certificates are deployed to the Enforce platform and all detection servers, as well as the encryption keys. All communications between the Enforce platform and detection servers are performed using TLS encryption, and the DLP agents communicate over HTTPS or AES depending on your agent versions. That will be discussed later on in this course. That completes the first lesson on the introduction to Symantec data loss prevention. In this lesson we've learned about DLP and the Symantec approach to data loss prevention. We've also learned about the Symantec data loss prevention products and its architecture. Please note the reference materials available for the Symantec data loss prevention product.